Hi everyone, it's Alice, and today I want to recommend some books for you that I feel like are perfect to read in autumn. Now, I've tried to find books that fit all kinds of vibes and moods depending on what you're in the mood for and what you like to read. So we have some different sections. We have cozy and comforting, dark and gothic, magical and atmospheric, mysterious and spooky, and then some books that are just fun. So you can skip around to whatever you like to read or whatever you're in the mood for. And I've really tried to find all kinds of different books, so we have a real mix of everything. I have a huge stack of books to show you, so we should just get into it. And let's start with the cozy and comforting books. Firstly, we have a book that I read last fall and it was lovely. It's In the Company of Witches by Auralee Wallace. And this is both cozy fantasy and a cozy mystery, and it's set in a small town in New England. And it doesn't get any cozier than that. The bed and breakfast does get a little bit less wholesome when someone is murdered in it, and there is suspected to be foul play, and the owner of the bed and breakfast is implicated in that. And the main character that we're following is the niece of the owner. And this whole family is like, they come from a long line of witches, so that's where like the fantasy and magic comes in. Of course, our main character wants to clear her aunt's name, so she does a little bit of investigating while she's grappling with grief. And this really is like a mix of like, there's some murder and some mystery, but then there's also all of these cozy magical bits, and there are some emotional bits. And the setting of this, like the small town, it's set during autumn, and like the autumn vibes of this are just immaculate, and it's just super cozy and just a nice little read. It's very charming. Secondly, we have A Psalm for the Wild Built by Becky Chambers, which if you're into cozy fantasy, you will have probably heard of this one, although I guess it leans a little bit more sci-fi, but it's all very low-key. It's set in a world where centuries earlier robots gained awareness, and so they decided to leave humanity behind, and no one has seen them since. And our main character is a tea monk who travels around for his work, and he ends up running into one of these robots, and the story is all about that. It sounds a little bit strange, but it's very sweet and just sort of philosophical. Then we have a graphic novel, which if you're on this channel a lot, you'll know what's coming. It's Garlic and the Vampire by Bree Paulsen. This is one of my favorite cozy, wholesome books, and it's perfect for autumn. It's set in a village of vegetable folk where we meet our main character, Garlic, who is a very anxious little person, but she's happy in her little town. But then one day, a vampire moves into the neighborhood, and everyone is like, somebody's gotta check him out. And they decide to send Garlic because she is, in fact, Garlic. There's a bit of adventure, and we just follow Garlic as she faces her fears and the world outside, and it is the sweetest thing that you will ever see. The color palette is very autumnal and sort of earthy, and I really like the art in here, and I like how the characters are drawn, and it's just a very charming, lovely little book. And if you ever need like a pick-me-up, this is the one. The next one I have is actually also a graphic novel. It's Mooncakes by Suzanne Walker, and this one is also very cozy. It's set in a small town, and we follow a teenage girl who helps out in this bookshop, and she's a witch, and she helps like lend out spell books, and she also sort of takes on assignments to investigate supernatural occurrences in her town. And one night while she's doing that, she comes across a werewolf who happens to be her childhood crush. This is also very cute, a little bit romantic, and again, the art is just lovely. Then we have another one where this recommendation won't come as a surprise if you've been here before. It's The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is one of my favorite cozy mystery books. It's set in a peaceful retirement village where we meet four sort of unlikely friends who get together every Thursday to sort of take a look at cold cases. And one day they find themselves in the middle of a fresh murder case when a brutal killing takes place kind of on their doorstep, and they find themselves in the middle of it, slash they get involved in it, because even though they're all pushing 80, they want to know what's going on. I love this whole series. It's definitely on the lighter side, and I think you kind of have to be into these kinds of books to enjoy them. But even though they are very cozy, they are also quite clever, and the characters are just amazing to read about. I love them so much. And every time I read a new book in this series, I'm just super excited to see the characters again. Next, we have some books with dark and gothic vibes, starting with Slewfoot by Brom. And this one definitely has some dark vibes to it. And I feel like the illustrations in here very much give off the vibe of the book. It's dark and a little unsettling. The story is set in colonial New England, where we meet a spirited young woman who becomes a widow very quickly after she marries this man, and she wants to keep whatever freedom she can. And that's very difficult to do when you're a woman in this puritanical society. And she just wants to live her life and she's willing to fight for it, which obviously upsets some people. And by people, I mean men. And while she's dealing with all of that, there is also a spirit in the woods that is awakening. And both the spirit and our main character kind of have to figure out who they are in this society and who they are in the world. And it's really, really good. It's dark though, and be warned, it does get quite bloody, but it's so good. Like, if you like dark and gothic books, this is perfect. Then we have one that thoroughly creeped me out when I read it. It's The Silent Companions by Laura Purcell. And this is historical fiction and also follows a newly widowed woman who is sent to her dead husband's estate. And she's never been there before. And her only, like, person that she has with her is her dead husband's awkward cousin. So already the situation isn't great. And then they get there, and it's pretty clear that something is off about this house. Like, the village next to it, the people there, they don't want to go near the house. The servants in the house are really rude, and something is just not right. And then things get worse when they find these wooden companions in the attic, and they start appearing out of nowhere, everywhere. And then people start dying. I made the mistake of finishing this when it was like really dark outside, but I was just so deep in it and I was really into it, but I also needed it to end because it was so spooky and scary, and I was actually a little bit frightened. To be fair, I'm pretty easily scared, but I was really creeped out by this, but in a good way. Next, if you're into more dark academia vibes, we have The Likeness by Tana French. This is a mystery novel, and it starts off with our main character, who is a detective, who gets called to the case of this murdered woman. And it's really weird because the murdered woman looks exactly like our detective, like exactly. And to make it even worse, this victim is actually using like an undercover name that our detective used years ago, and so things are just very weird. And then, when the case runs out of leads, they decide to send our main character, the detective, undercover into the life of this victim to try to, like, lure out the killer. The victim is a part of a group of friends, though, who all attend the same university, so that's where the sort of dark academia vibes come in. I really, really like this one, and even though it is a little bit of a longer book, I flew through it. Now, this is the second book in a series technically, but the books don't follow the same characters. The main character in this one is a side character in the first book, and I haven't read the third book, but in the third book we're following a side character in this book. And personally, I don't think you need to read the first one to, like, you won't lose out on anything. There are a couple of, like, things that you won't necessarily connect, but it's not really related to the case, it's more about the character, but I feel like it's fine. So if you don't want to read the first one, you can just jump into this one. Although the first one is also really good, but there's no like dark academia in that one. Then we have The Seven Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton, which follows a man who is stuck in a time loop. And on the day that he is stuck in, a woman named Evelyn Hardcastle will die at the end of the day, and he is basically tasked with trying to figure out who kills her. And he's told that he gets 8 days, and in each of these days he wakes up in a different person's body who are all in this mansion and all kind of like suspects, and that's obviously quite strange, and he has to live in these different people and try to figure out who is a murderer. If that sounds confusing, it is a little bit. Like, this is the kind of book that just throws you straight in and you just kind of have to figure it out. But once you get into it, it's so good. And this has, like, it is a mystery, but it also has some darker, like, stuff to it, and the atmosphere feels very, like, Gothic, to me at least. The setting is set in this, like, estate, and it's surrounded by woods, and I picture it to be sort of, like, gloomy, and it's just so good. It is unlike anything else I've ever read. It's so good. Very twisty and a little bit confusing, but once you get into it, it's just amazing. The last two books I have for this category are actually short story collections. The first one is Sleep No More by P.D. James. And if you like sort of golden age mysteries, you would probably enjoy this one. This is all about getting into the minds of the criminals, and obviously this has a very autumnal cover. And if you just want like short mysteries and you don't want to commit to a full mystery novel, this is great, and the vibes are immaculate. Lastly, for this category, we have The Haunting Season, which technically this is a little bit more wintry, but I feel like a lot of the stories in here are quite spooky, so I think that you can read those for like spooky season, and then you can save the more festive ones to the end of the year. And I feel like this would be great in that sort of transition between autumn and winter. But this has stories from all kinds of different authors, and there's a lot of atmosphere in these stories, and I just really enjoyed them. They're a little bit creepy and a little spooky, and I really liked it. Moving on, we have some magical and atmospheric books, which I personally am always in the mood for, and we're gonna start this off with Magic Lessons by Alice Hoffman. This book is a part of the Practical Magic series, which I love, and I think out of all of the ones that I've read, this one is my favorite. The Practical Magic series follows the Owens women in different generations, and they're all witches, and they're all cursed. And in this book, we basically see the origin of that curse. It's set in the 1600s, and we meet our main character who learns magic as a young woman and then eventually ends up in Salem, and the story's all about how the curse came to be. Alice Hoffman is one of my favorite authors. I think she's such a good storyteller, and I feel like this book is just perfect to sort of dive into and get lost in. We have more witches with The Witches of New York by Amy McKay. This one is set in 1880 in New York, and in the beginning of this book we meet two women who open up this tea shop in Manhattan, and they are experts in like palmistry and some potions and some spells and things like that, and they cater to high society of Manhattan. Then their routine is sort of disrupted one day in September when this young woman turns up on their doorstep seeking employment. And there is something a little different about this girl. She has either some incredible magical powers or she's going insane. It's not entirely clear. And then this girl disappears. This one is so good. Like, the historical setting of this is really good, and the supernatural elements are really, really cool. This next one is also set in New York. It's The Diviners by Libba Bray, and this one is set in the 1920s, which I love. And the story follows this young woman who is basically sent away from home to live with her uncle after something happened in her small town. And her uncle is kind of weird. He runs a museum of the occult, and our main character is really worried that he's going to find out her deepest, darkest secret, which is that she has some supernatural abilities. She can touch objects and then see the object's past. And this ability is like part of the reason she got in trouble back home. And then someone is murdered, and the police call in the uncle because there are occult like symbols at the case, or like at the scene. And our main character is like struggling whether or not she should get involved because maybe she can help, but then she has to use her power. This book is mostly just like a fun read, like 1920s New York, and our main character is very vibrant and young and alive. But there is also some spooky stuff in this because we get chapters from something that has awakened, which is very evil. And those chapters are actually like pretty unsettling. Then we have one that a lot of people have been reading lately. It's The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is a fantasy book, and again it has like some dark academia vibes, and it's set in a place where the hierarchy rules over everything. And our main character is an orphan, and his whole family has basically died because of the hierarchy. And he gets an opportunity, sort of out of nowhere, to enter the university of this place. And he goes there, and no one knows who he is. Like, he lies about who he is because he's there to find answers. It is way more complicated than that. This book is really hard to summarize, but it's so, so good. And it's the kind of book where I read this. It wasn't autumn when I read it, but I feel like it would be perfect for autumn because it's the kind of book you can sit down with and just get lost in and like read for a whole day. And the magic system is really cool. Kind of crazy, but really cool. And it's just very engrossing. And the end is crazy. The last two I have for this category are super atmospheric, but they could also go into the mysterious and spooky category, so it's kind of all of those things. The first one is The Devil and the Dark Water, again by Stuart Turton, and this one is set in the 1600s, where the world's greatest detective is being put on a ship back to Amsterdam because he's accused of having committed a serious crime. And with him is his loyal bodyguard who is convinced that he's innocent. And the story is about what happens on the ship on the journey home, because the minute they set off, weird things start happening on the ship. There are occult symbols, and livestock is slaughtered, and there is rumors that there is a demon on board. Or is there? We also have The Strings of Murder by Oscar de Muriel, which is set in Edinburgh in 1888. And this one is about a very mysterious murder case where a violinist is murdered in his room, and there are occult or like black magic symbols all around. And before he died, the maid of the house swears that there was like 3 musicians in there, like she heard them, but then this person is murdered in a locked room. So like, how did that happen? Enter into this, we have a Scotland Yard detective who is not very happy about being sent to Scotland, and then we have a Scottish detective who actually believes all of this black magic stuff. The book is basically them running around in like the twilight fog of the city trying to figure out what has happened. Like, that's very much the vibe. And I will say this is kind of over the top, and it's a lot of fun to read as well because these characters are just kind of ridiculous, and it's very, very entertaining, but it is also very atmospheric because of the setting. Then we have some mysterious and spooky books, which is obviously perfect for spooky season. And we're starting off with The Hollow Places by T. Kingfisher. This one is about a woman who finds a mysterious bunker after she like finds a hole in her uncle's house, and when she looks through it, she sees this bunker, and it's like impossible that it's there, but she sees it and she eventually makes her way into it. And in this bunker, there is a portal to all of these other worlds. And she has someone with her, and they sort of figure out that there is something in this portal world that is very creepy and very dangerous. And it's all just very unsettling. I love this author. She's one of my favorites, and I really like her horror, and I think this might be the one that I've read by her that creeped me out the most. There's something about this portal place that is just, oh, it's just very unsettling. Then we have another one with some dark academia vibes. It's In My Dreams, I Hold a Knife by Ashley Winstead. And this one follows 6 friends who met at an elite university, and during their time in university, one of them died. Or was murdered, basically. And they meet at a reunion 10 years later, and one of the friends cannot let the death of their friend go. And they're determined to find answers at this reunion because they never figured out what happened. And the story is all about that. This is very compulsive, and it's a mystery, but the academic setting is like really, really good. And I really enjoyed this one. It's one of those books that you can just fly through. Next, we have one that I read earlier this year. It's a little bit of a longer one, but it's really good. It's Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. And this is one of those books that is so difficult to summarize because there's so much that happens in this book. But it starts off with this orphan girl who has been raised by this woman, and they, like, the whole house is basically just like a band of thieves, and they're all thieves. And she, like our main character, she gets approached by this man who they all know, and he wants her to help him in this plot to basically steal the inheritance of this woman that he's met. And that's how the story starts, but there's so much more in this, and it's so, so good. The historical setting of this is excellent, and it is very atmospheric, but like, the best part of this book is like the twists. Like, some of them I gasped because I was so surprised. Then we have a book that I think is really thrilling. I know not everyone likes this author, but I actually really do. It's Angels and Demons by Dan Brown. And this is the first book in the Robert Langdon series, where we follow this Harvard professor who is an expert in symbology. And in this first book, he gets involved in this case where they find a murdered man with a symbol seared into his chest. And this symbol is like associated with this secret society that has a vendetta against the Catholic Church. Then there is a plot to like blow up the Vatican while the cardinals are trying to select a new pope. If it sounds like there's a lot going on in this book, there is, but it's so good. And the story is about how our main character gets caught up in this chase to basically save everybody. And these books are like a little bit over the top. You kind of just have to take them for what they are, but I really enjoyed them. There's like secret societies and history and all of these cool settings. This one is obviously set mostly in Italy, and it's just such a fun like mystery adventure mix. And you could read this any time of year, but if you want like a book to just get lost in again and you just want to go on an adventure and solve a mystery, this one is so good. And I think the ending of this one is particularly good. Next, we have More Murder with Magpie Murders by Anthony Horowitz. And this one follows an editor who in particular works with this like author who's a little bit troublesome, but his books do really well. So both her and the publishing house, they just put up with it. And she gets his latest manuscript, and she doesn't think anything of it. Like, of course, she just thinks it's like any other manuscript. But then she starts reading it, and it appears like there is something different about this, and something might be real in it, and this real thing might lead to murder. This is the kind of book that has like a book within a book situation, and I really, really enjoyed this one. It's twisty and a little bit different than anything else I've read, and I really, really liked it. It was very enjoyable. Lastly, for this section, we have another one of those books that I feel like is perfect to read in that transition between autumn and winter, although you can technically read it in autumn or winter. It doesn't really matter. It's Misery by Stephen King, which I think we all know what this is about, but if you don't, it's about this author who gets into a car accident, and he is found by his biggest fan, and she takes him in to nurse him back to health. But she also won't let him go because she's very, very upset about his latest book, and she wants him to fix his mistake before he gets to leave. And this one is just like, it's so unhinged, and the woman in this is really unhinged, but it's so good. A little bit gruesome in parts, but really, really good. Then at the end here, we have some books that are just fun, because sometimes that's all you want, something that's just entertaining and not too serious. First up here, we have The League of Gentlewomen Witches by India Holton, which is one of the books in the Dangerous Damsels series, and you can really read any of these if you just want to have a good time. These books are set in Victorian England, and in this one we're following a young witch who has to like get this talisman in order to avoid it going into the wrong hands, and she has to protect it, and things get a little bit complicated when this dashing pirate gets involved and gets all up in her business. What I like about these books is that they're just really over the top, and they poke a lot of fun at the rules of Victorian society. Like, I just really, really enjoy them. I always say this when I talk about these books, like, if you read the first 30 or 50 pages of this and you don't like it, you're not gonna like it. But if you are into it, you're gonna have a lot of fun. Then we have another book by my fave T. Kingfisher. It's A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. And this one follows a 14-year-old girl who has magical powers, but she feels like they're very useless because they only work on bread. And her, like, familiar is a sourdough starter. And I feel like that gives you a pretty good idea of the vibe of this book. Then one day, she finds a dead body in her bakery, and this sets off like a whole thing. And it seems like something is like hunting down magical people in the city, and she ends up having to help out to save everybody using her bread, basically. Another witchy book I have is Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. And this one follows this woman who hasn't been back to her magical hometown for years, but she decides to go back because there is this magical tournament. And her family, they basically preside over the tournament, and they've been doing it for generations, and now it's her turn, so she kind of has to return. And this tournament is all about all of these magical, powerful families competing. And she gets back to her hometown and she meets this very badass, charming woman who happens to belong to one of these families. And a lot of stuff happens in this book. It's basically like a mix of romance and magic and this tournament, and it's a lot of fun. It is kind of over the top and a little bit ridiculous. Like, you just have to go with the flow with this one, but when I read it, I had a really good time because I really like the setting, I like the magic, I even like the romance a little bit, which is saying something coming from me. It's over the top, but just fun. Second to last, we have The Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley, which technically could go into the mysterious category, but I've put it here because we're following an 11-year-old girl in here, and it's a lot of fun to read about her. She's very particular. She's interested in poisons and chemistry, and she gets involved in this murder case when she finds this dead man on her estate. It's technically not hers, but her family's estate. And reading about the main character in this one, it's just so much fun. It's kind of the same with this last one, except this one has an adult heroine. It's Cocaine Blues by Kerry Greenwood. And this is the first book in the Phryne Fisher series, where we follow Phryne, who is a lady detective in the 1920s in Australia. And she is just so much fun to read about. Like, if you like reading about boss, badass, adventurous women who just do their own thing, you're gonna love Phryne. She's such a fun character to read about. This is a mystery series, so there is a mystery in each of these books, but like, Phryne really is the star of the show in this, and even though there are some serious cases in some of these books, it never feels too serious. Wow, that was a lot of books, but we finally made it to the end of my very big stack. Hopefully, if you were looking for something to read, you found something that fits your mood, and if anyone else has any recommendations to fit these vibes, I would love to know. Leave it in the comments and we can all get more recommendations, including myself. As always, thank you very much for hanging out with me today, and I will see you soon. Bye!